And just to jump on through here, we're going to move on to the granddaddy of it all, the base story that influences everything within your specific reality is your identity, right? The story that you tell yourself, your personality. But your identity is the construct of your life experiences. And then of course, there's the translation of those experiences that weave specific stories. You can go into the poor me archetype and look at everything as negative and bad. You can look at everything as a lesson. And so you can go through the same experience, but translate it differently depending on how you choose to look at it. Oh, this bad stuff always happens to me. Or, what a great lesson this was. I'm thankful for this challenge. Right, depending on how you look at it, you tell yourself a different story, which creates an entirely different identity. And I think the biggest problem that we have nowadays is this addiction to our identity. Right, we have all these brands and clothing and things that help reinforce our identity. We have social media, in which are echo chambers to help reinforce our current understanding, to limit the ability to be exposed to differing ideals that actually open the door for one to change, right? Echo chambers, all done through algorithms. If you like this so many times, you're going to get fed more of that, and thus you always get the same information, self-reinforcing again. And so the story we tell ourselves has a huge influence on how we interact with reality, right? Who I am, what I'm capable of, all these inner monologues, inner stories influence how I interact and interface with the reality. Hence the point of change. And this is where true spirituality is, and even Christianity, right? Be renewed by the Holy Spirit. Do not conform to the ways of the world, but be renewed by the transformation of your mind. Both biblical sayings. But the most cohesive teachings are actually from the East, right? The Buddhism, the Taoism, where they were more focused on the internal. There's a lot of layers to the practices and what they try to show you, from being the witness, right? Because you're telling yourself a story, this is what's creating your identity, your ego. But who's listening to the story, right? What aspect of you is the listener, the witness, the watcher, the observer, all these terminologies. So there's this practice of that. Most Eastern practices are for you to get to observe, even though you can't observe the observer, but to shift your perception inward, to start questioning, who are you, what are you? But also, right, going back to detachment, right? Because to change the story, you must detach from your identity, right? Kill the ego, these types of things. But also your memory, right? What holds your personal story together is your memory of it. Not just memory, but your emotional attachments to your memories. Nostalgia is a big influence and a big glue that attaches your story to your identity, right? Making it hard to change because, oh, the good days of this and that, right? When we hold on to memories, when we cling to them with emotion, we get glued, right? We become attached, right? Stuck in that specific identity because we have so much emotional investment, just like in a relationship, right? Everything's fractal. When you have a lot of emotional investment into another person, a partner, right, it becomes really hard to separate from them. You become emotionally attached to your child and really hard to detach from them, right? And the same thing with yourself. You become really emotionally attached to the story that you tell yourself, right? Your past, which does no longer exist. But your emotions and your memories keep it alive. So it makes it even harder to change your story. But the only way to change, the only way to transcend, the only way for transmutation, transfiguration, transformation, any of these things require the detaching and separating from your personal identity, which is held together by the story of your history, of your past. Because the reality is life is what you make of it. Right? What do you tell yourself about yourself? Whatever that is influences reality and conforms it to that, right? I'm shy. Well, you're not going to interact. You're not going to interact. Things are going to happen. You're not going to be presented opportunities. you're going to miss out on life, right? The story we tell ourselves influences the reality. You can change the story by detaching from your memory, or at least the emotional investments you give to your memory. Become reborn, renewed. The very word reborn alludes to some type of death, right? We get caught up in the physical death, but it's not a physical death. It is your story, your memory, your personality, your identity is what dies, and then you become reborn with a new story. That's whatever you wanted to make it out of it. And with that, I leave you all. Hopefully that was somewhat informative and helpful. And with that, I'll see you all next time. Thank you.